Really?
Awesome. Did not
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah, so,
Trees.
yeah, it's kind of funny. So actually the designer we were using on this project and the McCaslin project said, hey, if you ever need to, go to 3D and make sure 3D is turned on. So a couple of things that have just come up within the last couple of, weeks is, so this sliver of property here is owned by the town. I wish I had an update. I don't know that I have an update on the Rogers Farm, other than to me, it looks like they're starting to do their due diligence out there. Silt fences up. It looks like they're probably doing some core samples. But we do know we've got enough dirt over here to kind of make a connection sooner rather than later here. And then in preparation of, maybe Rogers Farm comes in and we actually get a formalized frontage road. I do think, so quick point of reference, here's that 3rd Avenue trailhead that I was mentioning earlier. This is where the parking gets doubled up. Fire trucks can't make the sweeping turn. The residents here just would, in general, prefer not to have all that kind of cycling, biking, running traffic. So a couple of things. One, I do think sooner rather than later, we could start working on a plan to fill this in and make a sweeping corner
Nice.
to avoid the switchback.
For a road or for a trail?
For a trail now.
Okay.
And then in the event that, because this corner is owned by the town. So it's not likely that, there's not going to be a development on this little sliver.
I see.
There's not going to be a frontage road on it just because it would be probably outside this development.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about a frontage road. I just don't ever see how off of that roundabout, how far out you'd have to come into that property to be able to
Steep.
turn off with how
Right.
fast people are coming off there. Frontage road just never, I've seen it in designs, but it just never seemed practical.
Same, and
Yeah.
we've had the same comments. I've only seen them kind of in a 30,000 foot view of almost like a sketch. But we've always wanted to eliminate this switchback, which was an informal solution we just came up with in the Parks and Rec Department, 4 or 5 years ago. So soften the grades here with some dirt, make the sweeping trail, and then kind of, again, using, this is the Shan property. There's an existing road that actually acts as the secondary emergency access from original town. We own this property now, so, bringing a trail up, Ying off a trail, and we've got plenty of room and grade that we could make it an ADA appropriate trail, or if we wanted to, you could make a split and we can get people back out onto the new widened trail that's being put on McCaslin now. So yeah, our intention is to always preserve and have something from the Rogers property that would connect right up into, the Shan property and get people over to Mayhoff or Singletree.
But when you say that, you are meaning 100% from like bikes and running like a trail, not vehicular. So if let's say the developer for Rogers Farm does see that there's value in being able to have people go through his property or through their property with vehicular access, is there any way to have the trail access come from that area? I thought the only reason I ask is the big gap that we're seeing in the trail rankings between us and ProStack, and why this landed number 7 is ProStack has always had great concern about the right in, right out from McCaslin. So there had always been, that had kind of been what was holding things up and why we can never get consensus on it. So just trying to see if in the future there's any way to avoid the right in, right out and utilize a different approach that also doesn't use 3rd Avenue, which would basically eliminate everything except the roundabout. So just trying to see if that's completely off the table and wouldn't be practical, or.
So if I'm understanding, maybe like bringing a road up the hillside or using like the existing road grade here.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know that anything's off the table. I think it would just be a matter of, Shan was purchased with an easement from Boulder County, which may be a hurdle. But I don't know that anything's ever off the table. I think if it's the board's, if it's the town's open space, I think the town board can ultimately determine what goes on it.
But Alex and his crew were, from a
I-
traffic perspective, are okay, I mean,
You know, to be honest, I don't think we've probably looked at it at that level of detail, which we can absolutely do. My first guess would be is, you know, I don't know that cost-wise, building a parallel road to McCaslin
Makes
that comes
sense.
up just for trailhead access would be something, you know, that
Cost-effective.
feasibly would make sense, but I don't know that it's not off the table, that's for sure.
The other question I have is, we see the plans only on the Shan Shan property. Could it be on that other property to the west and kind of straddle that property and this property? Or does it need to be on Shan Shan?
It's,
Because that's town-owned, right? Right to the west of it as well?
this lower one is,
Yeah.
correct. Sure, you know, maybe like a trailhead somewhere down in here and a
Mhm.
formalization of this road.
Something like
Sure.
that. I mean, I know that original town members don't want the traffic through there, but at least if parking got off the road, that would
Mhm.
eliminate some of the headache.
Yeah, I was gonna point out that where you're thinking about starting the trailhead, I don't think is gonna be very attractive to people because right there, the trail goes up or it goes steeply down. If I was gonna go there with my kids or I was gonna go there for a run, I would not wanna start there. I would wanna start down there. That's why it's attractive, is because it's flat there and people can ride with their kids or run from there on a flat location and not have to do that hill if they don't want to.
Plus, thinking of future programming events, you know, Trails Day or whatnot, I would prefer to maybe move it to a little larger area like that, where you have a little more space to spread out, that's closer to maybe the downtown populated area, and then take some of that stress off of the Colton Trailhead. Since it is bigger and you got two pieces of property there.
Yeah, I feel like if you put the trailhead there at where the trail goes up and down, that people are still gonna wanna park down there because it's nice and flat, but you're still gonna have the traffic problem.
I will say that accompanying that would be a reconfiguration, and we would issue citations for,
Mhm.
let's say, these vehicles that are here now. You would have the no parking down there. But if the committee's desire is to not have it at the existing Shan Shan location, I think we should probably get that out there now, because as of right now, what's submitted to the county and what's been approved by the board and what was budgeted was for this location here, so we would just want to get that back before the board, and then I would probably need to pull back the recommendation that we sent to the county.
I think it would be imperative to get community feedback from the people who lived in original town in that area, because I would wonder if putting a larger trailhead that's just off Third Street is actually meeting the needs or responding to what the
Right.
problem is.
so, and I think this kind of gets back to where we landed during our conversation with the board at our joint dinner, just for everybody who wasn't there, where we kind of landed was, it would be awesome if we could get access through Rogers Farm to that area, because everything we're talking about right now, if we're gonna have something that straddles down there or anything like that, it would have to come through that area, because otherwise we don't solve the Third Avenue traffic problem, which is one of the reasons why this was being pushed from our committee to begin with, trying to solve the existing problems. So, I mean, where we left that dinner was, we can't just sit around and wait for the developer, and maybe that never occurs. Maybe, I mean, who knows what'll happen? So we have to move on something, which is why we're gonna move on this. And then we would see what comes from the developer. I mean, it's kind of a sticky spot, because if we're gonna move forward, we have to go with the upper lot. Because if we go with anything on the lower, we're never gonna have access to it. The only access we would have is through Third Street, and we haven't solved the problems. So, I mean, the only thing I feel like we can go forward with is what has been presented to BOCO. I mean, the optimal.
Well, here's the thought, though, is that, I mean, I don't know what that construction would be, but could that be more of a temporary site up there and more dirt and access, and then if, you know, use it for now, and then if that ever developed down there, we could reconfigure?
I think we could propose that to the county in terms of them amending their management plan. I think their preference will be that we come to them with a really, really baked
Okay.
idea. It absolutely could be, it could definitely be an option.
You know ProStack well, obviously. What are their biggest concerns with the right-in, right-out? Just traffic?
Just that it came from our traffic engineer that
And
he was
safety.
concerned. I think everybody loves the idea of the trailhead. They just, they probably heard the recommendation from us and the traffic engineer and said, oh, we should look at something different.
Yeah.
I mean, we've discussed this as a group also, the right in, right out was problematic, so it's consistent.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is why we were trying to talk about Rogers Farm.
What's on the eastern side of McCaslin? Would it be possible to put something over there and put an underpass under McCaslin?
So the eastern side of me, this will actually be redeveloped. This is, will
That's what
be
just got
home
approved,
development.
right?
Yeah.
A couple months ago.
So
Yeah.
I did talk to Patrick privately about whether there, I don't know, a year ago or so, whether there's a possibility of blowing a hole from Depot Road straight through to the other side
Yeah.
where the old trail bed was. But I think you told me it was gonna be like $1 million or more?
Correct. It's
Just to
north of
put
$1
that
million
in.
to get under. Yeah, we were at one point looking at doing the same thing at the Davidson Mesa underpass.
Mhm.
And I want to say the alignment and the cost estimate that we got was like $1.4 million just to get from here to here
Okay.
under.
Right. It's kind of what they did in Louisville to cross from the
Yeah.
lake over to.
And I think they're proposing more now.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is absolutely the safest way to go. It's just it costs.
Cost prohibitive.
Yeah. And, you've got future development on this side that everything would have to kind of be lined up with.
So-
And some of the thought was just, when we going all the way back to the DDI project,
Mhm.
some of the intention here was to provide a safe passage within, a short distance across McCaslin.
So we've kind of gone in a lot of different directions with this conversation.
So Patrick, has staff followed up at all with them about a potential access road? Because as I recall, we had at one point left it at that staff was gonna follow up with the developer about continuously pinging them about an access road. Because there are if they're gonna put something in there, instead of coming off the roundabout, similar to what they have across the street at the sports table, they actually have another road or another exit ramp, I guess, on McCaslin, separate from the rotary.
Mhm.
And they could do something similar to that, where you could have an exit ramp off into Rogers Farm, so you're not having to go around the rotary directly in. You could just come right off that kind of an exit ramp into
Yeah.
Rogers Farm, which would solve that whole dramatic drop-off thing they got
Yeah.
going on now.
Yeah, absolutely. I even
As soon
I
as
even
you cross-
sketched it on their drawing for them.
Yeah, so
So
I mean.
I just, and that could be something I could follow up with Stephen Williams or Martin on.
Yeah.
I have not seen anything more formal than just a really loose concept.
Yeah, I would assume that would save them space to build on if you
Mhm.
did it that way. And then it would still allow us to have that frontage road along the front, so they can have their residential on the other side without this, potential road that
Yeah.
goes to the trailhead, or some access over there to a trail, to infringe on those people, as opposed to Third Ave, then you have those new residents that would potentially be there.
But it would be built in and you know
It
what
would
you're
be built in
getting.
as-
and-
Right, it would
yeah.
be built in as part of getting to their homes, as opposed to going around the rotary and having to build landfill that's a mess.
So I guess to summarize where we've come back to, Patrick, you need guidance, I guess, or at least input from us. So right now, it's either continue to move forward in the direction that things are going, and if I'm mischaracterizing things, that basically kind of shuts down the idea of doing anything from the bottom, right? Because now that won't be baked into things. It
Mhm.
will. We're going all in on access from the top and right in, right out from McCaslin.
That's my understanding from the county, that we wouldn't be doing multiple access points over there. It would be
So-
one.
And we've heard a lot of discussion for various different reasons tonight, that it sounds like the bottom is still preferable if we can somehow get access to it. But that is unknown. It could take a while, and who knows if it will ever materialize. So I guess just checking the pulse of the committee, what is everybody's preference to continue to move forward from the top and know that that's what this is going to look like? Or the only other option, I guess, Patrick, is that we stop and we just don't do anything until we find out what the developer does.
Yeah, no harm, no foul. I would just tell the county that we're not interested at this time in going forward.
And basically, that would just mean this project goes on hold completely
Mhm.
until we see what the developer
Yeah,
does.
we would, my first thought would be is, we've got the budget process coming up, and the board had approved a dollar amount to build something along McCaslin. We would probably just notify the board, and either kick those funds out or just keep it on our radar within that 5-year window.
Yeah, because I don't think we'd ever want to say no to this. It's just
Sure.
we're waiting on hold to see if we can ever get the optimal access from the bottom
Sure.
to build what we really, really want.
I will say, from staff's perspective, if there's not a lot of interest or to really push hard on this, now is the time to pull the plug, because like I said, I've requested time on their agendas to present this option.
Can you bring up the plans for that again, please? So in this plan, there really is there wouldn't be any facility, like there wouldn't be bathrooms and that kind of stuff?
No, I think there could be. This was just that
Business
very
spaces.
first,
That's
that
just
very
the
first
parking.
blush of saying, hey, this is kind of what we're thinking. Can we get a thumbs up from you? And then we would go to a final design.
I prefer it at this location. I hear the input from everyone else, but I think aesthetically, it's a great spot, and I would like to stay away from the community down below and give them as much reprieve as possible, given that they're gonna have a bunch more development in that area.
It's true.
Given the uncertainty with the possibility of putting it down below and the also uncertainty about how the residents would respond to having it down there, I think I would prefer to put something there than not do anything.
I mean, and we talked even previously, there is sort of a landing right below that, and you could do some interesting things with just sort of right below, right above the house, if I remember right there, maybe you could put facilities or something else there. I don't know if we'll be able to see it from here.
Yeah, maybe not.
You're right, though. Originally, I was looking at it as that was the design, and it was pretty minimal, but that's not okay.
Here's the plateau.
I mean, look at that view. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, so the view, I mean, it's
It's striking.
yeah, it's a really good view corridor right there. And
How many cars can that accommodate, that plant?
Oh. Let's see if we have it. I want to say that we have 33 at the Colton Trailhead based off, the county has a calculation based off the whole, you don't want it to be loved to death. So they'll artificially restrict that number back down. So in a sense, you're controlling the number of people that are out on your trails. Sean, it doesn't look like it's on there. I can do a little bit of follow-up though.
I remember when we discussed it was about the same as the
Yeah.
Colton Trailhead.
That wasn't what we're left though.
No, I think it was at this one.
Was it?
I think so. Maybe not. I might be mixing them up.
I mean, it's been a while. I thought
It's
they were
been a while.
roughly the same size, but when we looked at it,
And the Colton Trailhead, believe it or not, we got an artificial second tier built in there in the event that it needed to be bigger, but so far it hasn't.
What was the question?
We would be able to if they could.
I don't think so.
If you could get a trailer in there, I don't know if that would be possible.
And I don't know
But
if you
yes,
would
they're
have to, because you could
able
drive
or-
2 miles up the road and have already dedicated horse trailer parking
Mhm.
at the Colton Trailhead.
You know, we also received the comment on the initial walk from the county as to why we wouldn't just try to work something out with the group up at Key Equipment Finance. And we're still also, I mean, it's been a little while since we've checked, but I think they still prefer, for reliability reasons, not to have people use their parking lot as the trailhead. But if anybody is on this trail, you know that there's connectivity through their fence, and
Yep.
I think they're the ones who've created it, actually.
No, there's a
You can always
gate
go
on the
say,
back side of
yeah,
that.
you can say,
Right.
hi, we get that rattlesnake complaint, there must be like on the county's property at least like once or twice a week, so be careful if you're up there.
I mean,
So,
I think maybe we need to vote.
yeah, I think we at least need to go down the line and see where each person's at least thinking. So I think, I mean, do we need, I think we've kind of gone over the positives and negatives of each location. So, Sean, you want to kick us off and just,
No.
What's your proposed vote? Which site? We
yeah, well,
prefer?
we need, I mean, yeah, we're,
I'll start if you want.
Yeah.
I have come around and actually think the top site, looking at that view, and building, originally when I saw it, I didn't see the facilities, so I thought it was gonna be pretty minimal, but if, it can be built out with those facilities, I think it solves all the problems.
It could be amazing.
I mean, even down below with the construction, there's a lot of grade work, it seems like, that would have to be done, so the cost will be higher, I'm assuming. So I like the plan up top. So that's my vote.
I vote top.
Where would the U-turn be again?
Would be.
so how would you make a U-turn on McCaslin to go back down towards like the Boulder
You
area?
just go up to the
At the
light,
light.
wouldn't you?
We'd go up to the light and we'd
Yeah.
sign it a little bit differently, or we'd make it known. One of the things we talked about was even pulling this back a little bit.
Well, that's how you would get out of the lower too, wouldn't you? You just left or right in, right out to the
Yeah, the
light.
problem that we had with the initial thoughts on the lower
So
You
you
think they'd
could
try to
sneak
cut
it
across
out.
the
is that people
Discovery.
would do it right here.
Yeah.
And you've got a steep slope and your sight lines going down aren't great, and that you're forcing people,
And people
and
absolutely
this, you gotta remember,
do
this
that.
is, this is future residential. And then this is future office park. Right here. So forcing people to have a little bit more drive time and then having a controlled turnaround with the light, just safer in general than having it here at Discovery.
So I can go. If all things were equal, I would say let's stop and go to the bottom, but with so much uncertainty around that, and we could just end up putting this on hold for 4 or 5 years and landing right back where we are tonight, and having 4 or 5 years of inflation and construction costs getting higher. I think I'm gonna land more risk averse and say let's go with the top lot.
I vote top lot.
Top lot.
The last one.
And guys?
I go with the top two as long as that U-turn thing is gonna be safe, because U-turns are generally not safe. But if it's gonna be well done at the light, that sounds good.
So it's hard for me to say top lot because I've been so vested in this lower section for so long. And it's nice when you come off McCaslin or you're coming off 36 or wherever you're coming from, you're going up the hill and you can see it right there. You see the open space, you see the trailhead, you see, I mean, it's like, here's Superior. Welcome to the gateway of Boulder Valley or whatever. And there's here's your trailhead. Whereas this is much more hidden. It's much more subtle. It's much less, inviting. But and there's less space. I think there's less space. I don't know. Not as much cars, not as much accommodation. And with that high density of people going in and around that rotary and this downtown there, and it's a little farther up, which is, maybe it's better. A little more difficult to get to for folks downtown. But as Ken said, in light of the fact that there's no certainty about anything with Rogers Farm and how it's going to look and access and everything else, and being put on hold when this whole committee is going to be a whole different committee at that time, and inflation and everything else, yeah, I don't see how we can go any other way than that upper lot. I hate to say it.
But Sean, I mean, I think there is an opportunity so you can see it from here. You might be able to see some of the facilities, and we talked about having some artwork in there or
But,
some of the
yeah,
heritage.
It's just
and-
like, it's so close to the key bank, and I use that all the time, and it's so close to that. It's like, well, why bother? You can just go up to Key Bank, which is just a little hop, skip, and jump away up the sidewalk, and use that instead of creating a whole new one right down 500 yards, or not even, down the street from it. And that's my concern, is get a little more separation from that. It's like, well, why bother? It's just another parking lot at that point.
But there's
Well, I
no
hear what
place to
you're
use a
saying.
restroom.
But we should
Yeah.
not make it just another parking lot. We should make it,
Well, if we
Fantastic.
can, yeah, if we can. I didn't think we had enough space there to do much.
right.
Well, for the parking, we don't, but there's ledges that, there's kind of space below that, it kind of, if you look at it, when you go around there, I don't even know how to describe it, but you go around that bend, and then it looks like there's a little flat spot down in there above where the house was. I don't know, could be interesting.
Could be.
I mean, we could get further down the planning process. I mean, I guess we don't want to pull the plug once we get going, but, so never mind, I'll stop.
So Patrick, just from a size perspective, the concept that we saw with the trees and whatnot in there, is that roughly like the same size as what's being proposed? Just so we could, from a mental standpoint, know what we could overlay onto the basic version?
I'm gonna guess that the lower one's probably just a touch bigger.
Touch bigger.
It looks bigger to me, just eyeballing
While Patrick's looking there, I do just want to put in 2 cents of a presentation I went to at COSA, put on by City of Boulder and BOCO people, who took a whole trailhead redesign and took input, which I know I've said to you, the seasoned people on here, took input from everyone in the community and made it a really incredible trailhead that everyone appreciated, instead of just a parking lot. So I would like that to be our goal in this project, if
So
that's at all possible.
That's another point that I have a problem with the upper lot. So the lower lot actually has some history to it, because we have the old
It's
rail
true.
bed, and we were going to encourage the historical committee to have involvement, and maybe bringing a lot of the signage that's from Third Ave over to where the lower lot is, because that still ties into where the old rail bed is, and that whole history of the coal all along that corridor, whereas up higher, well,
No, you have a great point, Sean.
is another flat spot.
But up higher, you are staring down right into all that heritage area.
Yep.
I
No.
just, I wonder too if the people that are accessing now down below are quite a few not local folks, and the people that are cutting through the Key Bank, like you're talking about, are the people that live in Rock Creek and are local and know about it. And so creating the trailhead, I just wonder if we know about the users, the people that are using it and how they're using it from there, so that we could make a trailhead that those people would move to.
The closest we would get from knowing the user makeup is at all of our National Trails Day events, when we've done raffles, prizes, we've had a little checkbox that says, "Are you a Superior resident?" just to see, at least down at Colton, what the usage is. And it's been roughly 2/3 to 3/4 Superior residents. That doesn't translate exactly over here, but closest we get to that question.
Just a little bit on the trail design. I mean, we will have to play by Boulder County's rules in terms of trail design, just because they do have the easement over the top of it. But generally, I think they do a pretty decent job. I think it it may look similar to Colton. I think the plantings could be different. I think they're kind of indifferent on the plantings. But they've got a set of guidelines that if we get to that point that we can dig into as a group, absolutely. This is the lower, I was just looking to see if we had any square footage in there.
52 parking
52
spaces.
max. I think the grade, well, actually, at a second look, my guess, Sean, is they're probably pretty similar.
So either way, it sounds like, even though it might be somewhat reluctant, I think the direction is top lot. So we're still good going forward the way we are. So really the next step is just, Patrick, I guess when you hear from POSAC, whoever's available can show up and support and give reason why this is important and show unity with staff. Any final comments, questions? Remember, anybody? Okay. Next item is the Coal Creek Trail. This actually still plays with connectivity in this area. This is something Sean brought up, and there were some emails with us and Patrick just to see if there is any way to add trail connectivity under McCaslin onto the south side of Coal Creek, right over here on the other side of Grasso Park. So Sean, I
Yeah.
don't want to do your idea disservice.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So the reason I was asking is because right now in Coal Creek Trail, you have to come around, do a dog leg or something, get up over the bridge, and then go up the sidewalk to get to the trail off-road. And I was thinking that if we had access underneath the bridge on the south side, since we already have a north one at the south, it would also create more of a creek trail on the other side as well. Such that if we were going, so that people wouldn't have to necessarily cross over the bridge, and they're already doing the reconstruction of stuff. I didn't know if that was still a possibility to add a sidewalk on the south side, so that you have access from both sides. You wouldn't have to cross over onto McCaslin, or if you wouldn't have to go around. The people on the south side already wouldn't have to cross the street to, they could just go to the underpass on the underside to get over to the trails and such. And again, since they're already doing the work now, I was just curious as to if it was A, feasible, and B, the cost to put in that, because it seems like such a simple thing to do, and it would you'd be able to have twice the access and not have to create another bridge and so on and so forth. So I don't know, Patrick, if you got feedback from anybody. And
Yep. So John brought up a great recommendation. We did throw it out to the hydrologist who is working on what's called a 404 permit, is Parks 1 and 2. So just a little bit of context. As part of this Parks 1 and 2 project, we're going to go in and basically gut the creek and rebuild the creek. And some of that was due to 2013 flood. Some of that's due to the fact that we wanted to beautify and have this great amenity. So with that, any changes you make to the creek, especially, we don't own the water. The federal government owns the water, so they get to kind of help determine what happens with it. So as part of that, the first thing that we found out is, so we've submitted what's called a 404 permit. It's about a 12 to 16 month process. When we submitted that, we said this is the plan, and we're not going to deviate or change the plan too much. So the first hurdle that we would have in there is that it wasn't included in the original plan with Parks 1 and 2. That doesn't mean that we couldn't budget this as a whole separate project and then issue another kind of 404 permit and do another kind of 12 to 16 month process. But as it stands now, it's not included in that plan. And we would need to do a little bit of a creek widening, if you will. I'm supposing most of the folks in this group have traveled under here at some point, and you can tell that we have a really, really sharp embankment here with what's called riprap rock, this really ugly kind of nasty rock that just stays in place, and it's kind of indestructible. And then the creek widens out, and then the trail, if you guys have been on it in the springtime, is actually designed to flood. We would need to lay the creek back further to the south, which would cause us to have to widen the bridge span, and that's where the project gets a little bit expensive. It's not impossible, it just gets to be a little bit expensive. And then there's also a drain right down the middle of the McCaslin that actually kind of daylights under. So there would be some drainage with it as well. So it's a doable project, probably separate than the Parks 1 and 2 project, and probably a pretty hefty budget item, just considering we would have to widen this bridge span a little bit. And then with that, you'd have to widen the creek. But again, it is, I think it becomes a matter of cost and priority at that point. But, you know, Sean, to your point, and for those of you who've been on the committee for a while, you know, one of the things we heard was the benefit of having trails on both sides of the creek. So I definitely can kind of see the desire for it. You know, so if the committee's interested in that as a priority project, I think we should just, you know, start getting it on the radar.
One other consideration, though, is I think, what was it, Trail 3 or 4 in our trail ranking was pretty much a bridge over the river on the west side of McCaslin up through that property. And I don't know if that mitigates all of those. I mean, it mitigates some of them. It mitigates not needing to go up to McCaslin to cross over, but it doesn't mitigate the issue of going underneath to the east.
And Ryan, to add to that comment, when we did meet initially with the initial Rogers Farm group, that was also on the sketch. We had sketched out a potential bridge access here and a connection potentially into Grasso Park. And our intention was to, you know, have them foot that bill as much as possible as a concept. But, you know, things are likely to change. But that we have expressed, that's our desire, is to have a footbridge somewhere over here to get people to avoid the, you know, when you come in on Coal Creek, it's just not a convenient turn right here.
So where will the trail on the southeast side end? Will it just kind of veer up to McCaslin, and then when people want to get to the other side to get on the Coal Creek Trail, they'd have to just basically walk up the sidewalk and cross at the rotary and
Yeah, so
or the light?
You know, just conceptually, there'll probably be a trail that'll connect onto the McCaslin roadway here that'll kind of steep down into the creek. And then we have several low water crossings that are, you know, kind of a dual purpose. But your first low water crossing is probably somewhere in this general area.
So how is this corner going to be developed between McCaslin and the trail then? So it won't cause a social trail that goes underneath the bridge regardless to those
Right.
rocks to still cross underneath?
Yeah, I mean, there's a social trail there now.
Oh, is there?
We could probably do some landscaping. It gets
But
a little.
why?
Yeah.
I mean, why would you wouldn't want to prevent that if, I mean.
Well, I think I could argue that having people navigate these rocks is probably not the best.
Yeah.
I mean, it happens. We know that it happens. You know, I think from a maintenance perspective, we generally try to avoid social trails, but, you know, we know they happen.
So then the other actual connection is where Marshall Road is going to end up crossing where the bridge eventually gets
Mhm.
built that basically connects 1 and 2.
Yeah, there's, you know, like I said, we've got several low water crossings that are intentionally designed for that, you know, dual purpose aesthetics plus water control throughout the creek project.
So what I'm hearing is that we have possibility of adding a bridge through Rogers Farm that would help alleviate issues here. We're gonna have low water crossings, and that it's gonna be really expensive if we do put in something. So maybe it's, as we see how Rogers Farms develops, I mean, that's hoping that we get a chance to provide comments on that. That's something we can certainly provide comment on to try to encourage a bridge there. Otherwise, maybe we just continue to watch it to see if the expenditure really does add enough value. I mean, we're talking, I'm guessing over $1 million is to change a bridge, extend a bridge there.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the McCaslin Bridge.
I would guess it would have to be something in that order of magnitude.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it were low-hanging fruit, right?
Yep.
Okay. So we keep our eye on it.
I do have to say that I love that you think everything is possible, though, Patrick. It's so wonderful.
It's just money.
It would be nicer just to say no so we can move on, though, Patrick. No. All right. The next topic is just 4th of July recap. Do you guys want to just...
Yeah.
Thoughts?
I thought it was great. I mean, I was busy the whole time talking to people about trails. You know, the map, everyone wanted to look at the map and talk about trails and what's going on where. It will be good to get that map updated. I had to explain to most people that the numbers were not priorities, but there was just a numbering system. People thought numbers meant priority. Well, we've discussed that. We've already changed our maps when we do things to be numbers, but it'll be good when we can get that done. I think that having the committee brochures there and actually the applications, I helped one guy get started filling out the application for ACES, and I had another guy take one to hopefully get signed up for OSAC. So we'll see if they, I know both the guys, so I'll nudge them, but it was nice having that though, because it was just an easy way. I'm interested, okay, here you go. So I think that was a great idea. Overall, it was a really good day, busy talking all day.
Yeah. I actually thought I talked way more at this event than I even did at National Trails Day. So it was nice to see people actually wanting to stop and talk. Vanessa, Kate, what were your guys' initial impressions? Kind of deer in headlights after the first one, I'm sure.
I learned a ton. I think it was just helpful rather than just going through and reading everything, being able to see it just as the residents do. It was really helpful to get the context of what all we're trying to do.
One of the really good points that Kate actually brought up to me after 4th of July was that we should really, as a town, I'm just saying this for the record and for you, Patrick, we should have every committee table at Chili Fest, at 4th of July, at any like public engagement, just have the general sign-in for if you want to opt into our town's email.
Oh, that's a great
Because
idea.
a lot of people seemed very surprised, and I think, a lot of people are more on the Facebook, right? They're doing the 0027, which means they're getting snippets of information, and sometimes it's not always the people that, it's not coming from the town, so why not put that opportunity out there for people to just sign up?
That's a
Because
great point.
it's not easy to find on the town's
Yeah.
website, and same thing with like the CIC listserv, and we've talked about
Yeah.
that as a board. Do we even want to get rid of it, and then some of us say, well, we want to actually encourage more people to sign up for it and actually use it. So I think going forward would be a really good idea to just have 2 clipboards at every table.
Yeah.
If you want to sign up for the listserv, if you want to sign up for the town's emails, here you go.
Probably do it on an iPad right there. if
Yeah,
people really wanted
that's
to.
what I actually thought of that you could have a Google form
Yeah.
right there, and people, if I'm there, people can use my phone to sign up for it. So,
It's a great point because a lot of the questions we got weren't necessarily open space.
right.
But it's stuff that we've talked about, so it could lend expertise too, but yeah.
But that's why it's good to have fresh perspective on
Yeah.
committees, because we've always been doing things, the same way, and then, you have somebody who's new and say, well, why don't we do something different? I just thought it was a great idea, and thought never crossed my mind, and it should have, but it
I
hasn't.
think the other thing, when, I don't know who it was, somebody was interested in one of the committees, and he was like, somebody handed him the paper form, and he was like, I don't really understand what this is. I'm like, no, you have to fill it out and bring it to town hall, because it's 1985. So I think that is something, if we could, that might be a reason why people don't want to, it's just, it could be a barrier for people signing up for committees, that they just have to come here. It doesn't seem like a very big barrier, but it very well could be.
That's
All good
awesome
points.
feedback.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Next is the COSA conference. COSA is the Colorado Open Space Alliance, and their conference is basically a get-together of many of the municipalities within the state. So you've got Boulder County, you've got Jeffco, Fort Collins. It's a ton. Yeah, it's everybody gets together, and it's basically just a statewide open space conference. And there's a lot of presentations about what everybody has done throughout the year. So you learn about projects where they've implemented easements, where they've bought open space. I mean, you learn how this stuff kind of works. There's also some social aspects to it as well. It's a 3-day conference, 2 nights, I think, where you do food with everybody and whatnot. And then there's also one session where everybody breaks off and does kind of an optional thing that's usually fun. I've gone to it once, and the one I did was mountain biking. Tracy, did you guys have that when you went?
Yeah, we hiked Cucumber Gulch, which is, if you ever take the gondola at Breck, on the way up, it's that huge water, kind of marshland. You know, it's really beautiful. So they talked about the restoration, and how they brought that back from what it was.
Yeah. So, the dates of the conference this year are September 10th through the 12th. We have budgeted enough for a person from the committee to go. So really, if you have those days available and you're interested in going, shoot Ryan and I a email letting us know you're interested. Generally, just because it's usually during the week. We haven't had a ton of volunteers, so we haven't had to worry about multiple volunteers and whatnot. But if we do, we'll figure out how to decide who goes. But yeah, if you can make that happen and you're interested, shoot us an email, and then at our next meeting, we will figure out who's going and get signed up.
Is it the same time every year?
I don't think so. Do you guys get to go? You and Allison this year?
I think Allison was going to try to go. We're kind of in budget process during that time, but I think AJ was going to try to go.
That'd be awesome. So, yeah. So take a look at it and let us know. And then finally, our last topic is we had Patricia Dunham term limit off of our committee last month. Ryan had a great idea of just a great way that we could possibly say thank you. I don't know how closely everybody follows what happens with the board, but there's been kind of a recent change to the proclamation process, and people can submit proclamations. So the thought was we could possibly just create a proclamation thanking Patricia for all of her hard work and effort and whatnot, and just recognize her. Patrick let us know tonight that we actually used to be a standard process, and then we moved away from it a few years ago. But I think the worst that happens, if we want to go down this route, we submit it, and then if the board says, no, we don't want to do it this way, we can figure out a different way to thank her. But does the group feel okay?
Is this like a formal ceremony or what? I still.
The proclamation process is it gets submitted online. There's some type of review to it. Maybe Mark, you can shed more light on this. I'm not sure exactly what review occurs with the proclamations, but then the mayor, I think, reads them out loud during the meeting. Any-
Yeah, we used to do the proclamations just on the consent agenda, and we've actually, I think it was Sandy Hammerly's suggestion that, well, if they're proclamations, we should really be reading them out loud and proclaiming them and giving them the attention that they deserve. So we have, since, I don't know, maybe 2-3 months now, any of the proclamations that are coming before the board. If there's anything that's like overly political or something that's not something that the board is willing to adopt, it typically doesn't even get to the point where it's on the agenda. Like, I think it's kind of an administrative, Matt does a gatekeeping function to make sure that nothing, crazy gets submitted, but I don't think anything really crazy has gotten submitted. But we've had a proclamation for, various, like Radon Awareness Month, and then there's, Muscular Dystrophy Month and things like that. But, to recognize people in the community, I think is completely appropriate. So I think you just submit it, and then I'd be happy to read it.
So is everybody okay with that idea? So the parameters of it is it has to be 100 words or less. So Ryan and I have been kind of taking a stab at writing this language up right now. Sean, if you want to hit the lights. Is it easier if we read it out loud, or does everyone just want to read it on their own? Okay.
Unless you want to.
I'm fine not reading it out loud.
And just for everybody's information, so on the town's website, there's a form, and it says, proclamation request process. And it says proclamations are generally issued for significant contributions or service to the town of Superior, so this would be appropriate. Organization, business, or group milestones and significant anniversaries, cultural or historical occasions, charitable fundraising efforts, centennial birthdays, wedding anniversaries for 50 years or more. And then it says, please keep in mind all requests will be reviewed individually. The mayor and the town board reserve the right to approve or deny any request. And proclamations issued in previous years are not automatically reissued, so.
That sounds like this could fit.
How many words is that?
99.
Is that why you took out recommendation from OSSRR? Open space summary.
Report and recommendations. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. We'd be over by one.
Yeah, I think that was why I took it. I was taking words out of each sentence trying to.
So what if
we
it
were at
is
about
over? Are
120
they
this
gonna eject you?
afternoon.
I mean, yeah. You're probably allowed a 5-word buffer, right?
Well, having not submitted, I didn't know if it was going to be like one of those, like if it counted the words, because there are some of those that count the words.
Gong show.
Exactly. Send is grayed out. So I think after everyone's done reading it, if you have changes, say your changes, otherwise, thumbs up. Looks like we're all good. So this doesn't need to be a recommendation or anything, since we're just gonna submit it, so, Ryan, this matches, I gave Patrick what you had given me, so what you sent over to me this afternoon is the final version.
Okay, do you want me to just
So if you want to submit it, yeah.
Yeah, I'll submit it. I'm not gonna put it in the minutes, that exactly what it is. I
That's
don't want
fine.
Patricia to read it ahead of time.
Perfect. Okay. So finally, updates and look ahead. The first one is the Anderson property. We looked at this property. This was presented to us at our last meeting. It went before the Planning Commission, not this Tuesday, but the Tuesday before that. The Planning Commission approved it with some reservations and notes, mostly due to traffic. I was there speaking as just for personal reasons about the traffic of it, but because I was there, looking at the packet, our OSAC notes hadn't been approved yet through the board, so they didn't see what we had actually recommended, just from a timing issue. So I actually read them what we had said. I tried not to add any extra color commentary to make sure I only put in what we as a group had mentioned, but they at least heard the fact that we wanted a wildlife corridor. I think that was the biggest thing that they actually kind of glommed onto, but I don't think it made it into any of their conditions. So as far as I know, the space on the west side in between the existing homes and the new development is just going to stay as what we saw unless the board changes it. I don't know, Patrick, any other updates?
Board is tentatively scheduled to do a review this item on the 23rd.
Yep. Next item, OSAC membership. We have one open slot. Patrick, want to give the good news?
Yeah, you have, as of this afternoon, 2 applications, one of which I believe is already scheduled for an interview, and one that Karen will work with management staff to get squared away. So as far as I know, you guys are the first committee who had an opening who will now have a backlog. So congratulations.
All right. Score. Standing updates, wildlife enhancement encouragement activity, Tracy?
Yes, so I hunted through all of BOCO's information online and didn't have great luck. And I did communicate with Allison as to what projects she had referred to that were that she had seen in the past, and she kind of referred me right back to where I was. So that was essentially their, let me find their verbiage, their capital improvements plan, which has a ton of stuff on it, but everything is very specific for the BOCO areas that they're looking at. And the only things I found that maybe we could grasp at for wildlife enhancement is the black-footed ferret, but they're already communicating with you about that, right? And that's already in the works, and of course that would be more on BOCO's property rather than our property, I would assume. And then the other thing I saw that they're working on in several different places is our favorite Prebles jumping mouse. And they're trying to put that into several different properties, one being close to the St. Vrain Creek, which apparently is the best place for the Prebles in BOCO. So, of course, I was thinking of it with all the creek enhancements that are going to be happening, but I have zero idea if any of that is even possible or applicable. So, Patrick, dig in.
You know, the only idea that I had read an article about encouraging pollinators, which I know we had a Boy Scout group try a couple years ago, and then I want to say that CDOT or somebody with the state was interested in creating large swaths of pollinators from the southern part of the state to the northern part of the state by doing a certain type of planting. But I knew you guys were talking about it, and it was just on one of the numerous articles that came through. And I know, you know, at least from our management perspective, we've got to, you know, if we find, you know, bees in town, we actually communicate. I don't know if anybody saw on the news, there's a gentleman that does this up at CU, and that's actually the same guy that we use to come protect and get our bees safe. So it was just something that I read. So.
I think that's an interesting idea. I didn't see that anywhere in BOCO's plan that they're working on.
I don't think that they're
so.
doing pollinators. I know, but you know, even when we started a couple of years ago with Vargas on the more perennial plantings, you know, we tried as much as we could to put that in place, but, you know, thoughts in terms of seeding and open space. The Scouts brought that idea to do the milkweed 2 years ago, last year maybe.
Last year.
And it, you know, it didn't really take off, but I also don't know, you know, when you're just kind of scattering things out there. So that was just one of the ideas that we had. I know that my staff's genuinely interested in trying to be more progressive in what we're doing with our plantings to encourage pollinators. I think theirs might have been more specific to monarch butterflies.
Yeah, it
Ken,
was.
was that what it was? So.
We could work that into our giveaways for next year, whether it's seeds or seedlings or.
We're getting a ton of requests for people who want to put wildflower seeds in the open space, and unfortunately, we don't allow it because it takes on a life of its own. But, you know, maybe designated areas, or I know that my wife and I participate in a program in Thornton where you can plant certain items on your own property.
Yeah.
And it's more of the city was like encouraging us to do that as an individual homeowner.
And so that's something we could probably head up, or if we had
So, yeah, I mean, it was,
giveaways.
we got it for free.
To the homeowners, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we got like a seed packet at one of our town events for free, and, you know, we planted it in our backyard.
Seems simple and easy, we could do.
Mhm.
Cool.
Can you briefly tell me what that means, wildlife enhancement and encouragement activity?
Just that we had been shooting for forever, since open space had been created, to try to increase wildlife and enhance whatever we can in this area. So at one point in time, it was the
Pronghorned antelope.
two-pronged or three-pronged antelope that we wanted to think about reintroducing, but that, again, is not very applicable because we can't have pronged
Oh,
antelope.
and don't forget fireflies. We were trying to do fireflies.
Oh, I missed the firefly. That must have been before me. So it's really exciting, but we don't get to take the lead on a lot of it because of the location. And like the ferrets is awesome. The BOCO is doing a great big project on that to try to, what do I want to say, control the prairie dog population. Yeah, so if you have any ideas, speak up. Yeah, or if you want to do research, that's all I did this past month was try to find anything, and I wasn't very successful.
Yeah.
But I do love those pre-bulls jumping mouths, so if we want to get on that, I'm all
Have you
aboard.
looked into the raptor program with Boulder County?
We haven't looked into it at all, no.
That's, I mean, on the 0027, everybody's talking about the raptors in Superior. The mayor talks about it. There's nests on the open space. They're supposed to be protected. It just seems like it would be an easy educational protection, kind of even generating interest in our open space, and an easy way to say, look at
Yeah,
these
and
really neat things we're protecting. And
At our National Trails Day event, we do have, what's the organization called? Hawk Quest.
Hawk Quest.
Thank you. And they come and present with their raptors. This year they only had owls, but
Yeah.
previously they had raptors. But anything else you can think that you'd wanna?
Yeah, Vanessa, what we've done is we've broken it out to, if people are passionate or want to take on like a specific projects, like the ones we currently have down listed on our standing updates are ones that people have kind of taken on. If you're interested in joining, like right now Tracy was looking into things, but
Did it for 1 month?
yeah. If
Come aboard.
if you've got ideas about the raptor population and want to come and just kind of look in and see what type of initiative we could take as a group, I fully invite you to do so.
And they've got a ton of great information at BOCO and City of Boulder.
I've actually already looked into it a lot.
Perfect. Yay. Great, fill us in.
When we have our next meeting, if you want to either shoot stuff to the group beforehand, if it's a lot of info, or just talk to the group about things we could do, we can figure out what we can pull together. Awesome. Rocky Mountain Greenway, Joel's not here, but Mark sent out an email that went to everybody, right? Am I?
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yesterday, Town of Superior filed a lawsuit against the United States Fish and Wildlife Service related to Rocky Flats, the Rocky Mountain Greenway. It's like a 26-page complaint. We're alleging claims for declaratory judgment and injunctive relief. So basically what we're asking the court to order the federal government to do is to do a full and comprehensive environmental impact study and assessment before any construction starts and people are allowed onto the Rocky Flats site. One of the arguments is, so there was, back in 2004, 2005, before I think Fish and Wildlife Service took over from Department of Energy, they had performed an initial environmental impact study, and they're trying to base a lot of the decisions that they're making now on the study from 14 years ago, notwithstanding the fact that the plans have changed, the use contemplated by the public has changed. So they back in 2004, they thought, okay, we might open it up for, you know, maybe some pedestrian access and a small little visitor center. And now all of a sudden there's a massive, you know, biking trail going from the Rocky Mountain Arsenal all the way up to Rocky Mountain National Park, and that hasn't been studied adequately to determine what the environmental impact would be of allowing people onto the site. They're arguing, the federal government is arguing that they can do this because it's just this kind of discrete little project, and that there's a number of projects. And so through our counsel, who's an environmental lawyer, there's this concept known as segmentation, and you can't segment a project into these discrete little chunks to avoid the requirement to do a full environmental impact study. And so that's what the town of Superior is saying the federal government needs to do. You can't avoid your obligations under the National Environmental Protection Policy Act, NEPA, which would require you to comprehensively assess a project in its entirety and the environmental impact of it by just doing these little chunks so you can avoid the study. So what we're asking is for the court to basically pump the brakes on the project, have the government do a full study, and then after they do that study, can they then go forward and potentially open it depending on what the study reveals. But you can't do it until the study is performed. So, we don't know what's going to happen. I'm sure the federal government will move to dismiss the complaint and, litigate it, but the town board concluded that, it's in the interest of public health and safety for our residents and for people accessing the refuge that we think that the government needs to do its job to fully study these things before the sites just open up to the public.
Now, Mark, one question, if you can answer it. I saw that we are the only plaintiffs listed, and there's been other legal activity from other groups against the government. Is there any connection with ours to theirs at all, or is this very independent of what they've been bringing forward?
So the environmental groups have a different kind of legal theory and relief that they're seeking. Ours is different for a number of different reasons. So right now, there are two separate actions.
Okay.
Litigation can take a life of its own, and the government will likely try to consolidate the cases into one, which is always a possibility. We don't know if that's going to happen. It was just filed yesterday. So, as of right now, this is something that the town of Superior is doing without any co-plaintiffs. We don't know if other municipalities would want to join the action. We don't know if the environmental groups are going to want to join the action. It's possible, but right now, we're going to move forward with this lawsuit and, litigate it until we get some sort of adjudication from a judge. Awesome.
Is there going to be any notifications, like just to the public, that this is happening or anything? I had no idea till you sent me this. Clearly it happened yesterday, but it hadn't been picked up by the Daily Camera yet, and
Right.
I didn't see it.
It'll happen soon.
Yeah.
So CBS News reported that we filed.
Okay.
Nobody else picked it up yet. We didn't do a press release, but we might. That remains to be seen. But right now, it's a public document. It's available. You can circulate it to whoever you want.
Cool. To the CAC. No. Okay. The next is Shan Shan. I think we've covered that ad nauseum tonight. And then the final thing is the pros newsletter bullet items. We have bullets that we need to send over to staff is basically as soon as possible to get out into the newsletter for this Friday. Ryan, did you just want to go over the bullets that you had pulled together?
Yeah, and I'm kicking myself because I had pretty good bullets last time, and I don't remember what happened to them. So to start over, I have 4th of July National Trails Day events were a hit with the town citizens and great feedback to the committee. So something just to recognize that we had those events. And I think they both happened between the last newsletter, right? Since we've submitted. Because I think it maybe has been 2 months. Anyway,
Yeah,
but
I think that's-
if there's some overlap, that's fine. I don't think it's a big deal.
Yeah.
I was going to say the 5-year trail ranking process has been completed with ProStack and submitted to the town board. It hasn't quite been submitted.
It's close enough.
But yeah, that, and then said per OSAC recommendation, the town is investigating an ecological study to more specifically address the Hodgson-Harris Reservoir ecological concerns. Patrick, do you have any issue with us putting it out there like that?
That was the one that I had,
Okay.
that if you guys didn't add it, I was gonna suggest you might
Okay.
wanna add it.
Those sound great.
Anything I missed? I mean, big things we're working on. I mean, everything else is not that concrete.
And I think anything else that was big, we've already put in prior updates. I think we're good with those 3. I was gonna say we could put out, just say, looking for one more person, but if we have 2 people in the hopper, then that's not necessary. Cool.
And I had already mentioned to Karen that if both, or if once you're full, we'll also want to recognize that, but that's something that we'll just type up.
I mean, this would maybe be another opportunity to thank Patricia. We could say something about,
It's a good idea.
Patricia completed, turned out and appreciate her service or something like that. I mean, it would be a bullet, but
That's a good idea.
I don't know. I think we should be rewarding
Give her a shout
people
out.
that stay as long as they can. I think
Who
that's
made
a
it.
pretty awesome accomplishment.
Yeah, let's add that as a 4th bullet. Cool. All right, anything off the agenda, comments, questions, otherwise? All right, we're adjourned.
Gosh, almost right on time.